Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Wolfenbarger, and I'm the Education Manager for AHOA. As we continue our series on the impact of the hospitality industry due to COVID-19, we're happy to have back an industry expert that many of you already know, Tarun Kapoor, Managing Director of Kapoor and Kapoor Hospitality. Now, you may have also been already exposed to his expansive knowledge as the facilitator of AHOA's most popular education workshops, how to form a management company, how to develop a hotel, and financing for your hotel. Today, we're going to continue our webcast series where we're going to connect the dots from our last two webcasts where we discuss performance management and how to develop KPIs and CPR, which was compensation, participation, and recognition. And now we're going to take these KPIs along with the CPRs and learn how to better understand how to develop and implement sustainable performance-based incentives for the entire organization. Now, before handing this over to Tarun, I'd like everyone to please take notice of the following disclaimer for all of those listening to this presentation. There will be a Q&A available at the end of the presentation for any questions that you may have. Please type them into the questions section. Also, we encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to ask what is on your mind and don't be shy, but please note we may not get through all of our questions at this time. Also, we will make today's presentation available for all within 24 hours on our COVID-19 resource page. We're excited to have you all here today, and let's get the conversation started because we know Tarun has more insight and practical advice to offer us. Now, Tarun, let's connect the KPIs, which was key performance, productivity, and performance incentives, along with last week's webinar, which was CPR, compensation, participation, and recognition. And how do we connect that with performance-based incentives?
Perfect. Well, thank you and hello again. So you may have heard me say before, I mentioned this, I think in the last session too, or last two sessions. I think as an employer, I'm in a very competitive marketplace and I need to be the favored employer of choice in my area, in my exit off the freeway, in my downtown area if I'm downtown, my suburban area if I'm suburban, and compared to all the other hotels that are in my comp set, I need to be the employer of choice, which means all professional employees working in the hotel field must know about me, my hotel, and must know about the working environment in my hotel. And it's with that attempt to become the employer of choice that I connect the dots between performance management, which is how do I optimize the productivity of my people. And we do that through key performance indicators, which is measuring the right things and letting everybody in the team know what we are measuring. And then linking that with compensation, compensation being the wage and salary and benefits and incentives that I offer. I'm going to talk a lot about incentives in a few minutes. And participation, which is talking about how we govern our hotel, how inclusive are we, and how we empower our employees. And lastly, how we recognize and reward our employees, which is also going to be linked to today's discussion. So my objective is for your hotel to become the employer of choice within your comp set.
So Tarun, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, please, after you.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to sort of define the term incentive. Because I think you know, a little bit of personal story. I came to America in the mid-70s. And one of the things I quickly realized as a young man was I look forward to Christmas. And I look forward to Christmas because there was this wonderful little thing called a Christmas bonus. So somehow around Christmas time, my boss would come to me and say, "You are going to get a bonus. It's your Christmas bonus, and it is X." There was no rationale to that X other than it's Christmas time, I get a gift. And this bonus, which really was assumed by me to be part of my salary, it's a part of my wage that I would get it at Christmas, but I really didn't know how much I would get and why. So if my boss happened to be in a good mood, or if the business happened to be doing well that year, I may have got more than I expected. And if last year I got more than I got this year, then I wonder why I got more last year versus this year. There was no rationale to the bonus. An incentive, on the other hand, simply says, can I motivate my employee to achieve a certain level of performance? And then for that level of performance, they will get some money, cash reward. And we have to link the reward to the goal. So I think in today's discussion, the critical point is differentiating between the idea of a bonus, which is sort of misunderstood, versus a performance-based incentive plan. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yes, it does. So if we take a step back from what we talked about last week with the CPR, you had mentioned that compensation is what brings the person into the door. The the benefits also is what keeps them there. But then performance and reward. And last week you talked about if you reward somebody based off of their contribution, whether it's not just a physical, but it could also be ideas and everything like that. Do you tie the incentive into that recognition, or is that based off of their actual physical work?
Absolutely. I mean, the one word answer is yes. The question is, how do we link recognition and or reward with the incentive? You know, money talks. So if I can connect the incentive I get to the work I have done, and if my fellow workers can see that the work I have done and how much I have done, and as a result, I'm qualifying for my incentive, then all of a sudden it also becomes very powerful in terms of motivating other people who may not have been inclined to achieve the goal. So, let me drill into this, Steve, because I think in some ways, if we don't really understand the total implications of this, it can be mishandled, if you will. So let's make some assumptions, or let's define some criteria, if you will, for a good, effective, performance-based incentive program. So first of all, the term itself, performance-based incentive program. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is, if you're using my performance results, my outcomes, then those outcomes, I must be able to see them. In other words, if I don't see my result, then I don't know my result, then I'm not motivated to do more or to stretch a little. So when we talked about key performance indicators, the first session, the key performance indicators are really designed to say, what is it that you're measuring about my performance? How objective are those measurements? And if I can see those measurements, if I can see them, then I understand them, then I can make an effort to achieve them. So we can have any form of key performance indicators. You could have a key performance indicator that says you want a certain score on your medallia. You can have a key performance indicator that says you want a quality inspection score off. You can have a key performance indicator that says you want to have a ref bar off or a minutes per room to clean a room off. These are all key performance indicators relevant to different jobs that my employees are doing in my hotel. But let's just take one thing like RevPAR. If you told your general manager that you wanted a RevPAR of $109, well, he or she understands that. You understand that. Possibly your front office manager understands that. Possibly your guest service representatives at the front desk understand it. Everybody understands it. But you see, a goal of 109 for the year of 2020 is almost, in my mind, a wasted goal. However, if you said for the month of September, which is your peak season or the end of your peak season, as the case may be, I need a goal of 112 for September, but I need a goal of 99 for December. So the shorter the term, the key performance indicator, the shorter the term, the performance goal, the easier it is for me to see it, the easier it is for me to see what do I need to do in the month of September to achieve that goal and come up with my own strategies to be able to achieve it. So a short-term goal is a powerful goal. Second thing, if your system doesn't allow you to track your RevPAR, now RevPAR is a good example. You can track your RevPAR day by day. Your PMS does it for you. So if you track the RevPAR and then show your staff how to see the RevPAR, then they can say, oh, my efforts today helped improve the RevPAR, or my lack of efforts today helped keep the RevPAR low. So this idea of it being transparent, it being visible, it being in front of me, is very much the same logic that teams use with measuring and monitoring each team member's, if you will, efforts and scores. So the third thing that I'd like to talk about is you want to be able to create a culture of linking incentives to the profitability of the hotel. What that then begs, and we talked about this the last time, is transparency in sharing what the profitability of the hotel is. So I think it is critical that we define, especially with management, that we have to achieve a certain top line in revenues. Again, you could have a $4 million goal for the whole year, but it's 4 million and a whole year too far away for somebody to keep track of, as opposed to saying, I want $1 million in the first quarter, as opposed to saying, I want $250,000 in January. So the top line goal. The second is the net operating income, NOI goal, or like I like to call it, the EBITDA goal, which is the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So if I told you that I expect you to give me $1 million in September of 2020, or in the third quarter of 2020, and then I told you that I expect 40% net operating income, because that's what I need to be able to make my mortgage payment, to be able to make any kind of income tax, and or even pay off my investors and so on and so forth. So now the goal is give me $1 million in sales, and the goal is keep your costs in line so you can give me 40% net operating income. So I think it is critical that everybody, at least every managerial person in the hotel, should start acculturating themselves to say, at this hotel, we are bottom line driven. Now, you've all heard in every conference, bottom line or net operating income is an outcome. The input is your associates. So how do you manage your associates? And this is the last time when we were talking about compensation, participation, recognition. If my employees feel good about working in my hotel, if my employees like the way they're being treated at my hotel, then my associates are going to treat my guests the way my guests need to be treated, which then begs the question that you can't have an incentive plan that doesn't monitor profit, associate satisfaction, and guest satisfaction as the three legs of this three-legged stool. Any one of these legs breaks and you've sort of lost your balance and you no longer can sit on the stool. So I think critical piece, a critical point of discussion here is the idea of the fundamentals of a performance-based incentive plan is one, keep it short term, two, make the measurements clear, the key performance indicators clear, three, allow me to see the progress I am making towards achieving those goals, make it transparent, and then link them to the associate satisfaction and to the guest satisfaction and to the net operating income. Does that make sense, Steve?
It does. And it's very fascinating to listen to you talk about that. And so going back to at the beginning, you did talk about your Christmas bonus. So how is a performance-based incentive different from a bonus?
Well, some would argue that it's semantics, but I would argue that it is cultural. And what I mean by that is whether I was a store clerk in a grocery store, a room attendant in a hotel, a general manager in a hotel, or a general manager of a car dealership. I expected in America, it was my birthright in America, to get a Christmas bonus. Now that was 1976 when I came here. Today is 2020, and I would argue that a minority of American businesses gave out Christmas bonuses last year. Why? Because the culture has changed. The culture has changed from this being a birthright, a Christmas bonus, to being an earned incentive. So what that has done is demanded that the way we run our businesses and the way we create our incentives and the way we track them has to be more sophisticated. And technology makes that much easier for us to do.
That makes perfect sense, and I truly get that. And if I may bring this to COVID, do you think that in the times of COVID right now that we can do a performance-based incentive with everyone hurting so much right now?
So we are talking about furloughs, we are talking about unemployment lines, and clearly we are not talking about bonuses. Maybe some money managers in Wall Street are making big bonuses, but bar that, I haven't heard of any bonuses being given out. But again, let me make a point. I think COVID can be an excuse for giving a bonus or not giving a bonus. What shouldn't be an excuse is the business achieving its profit margin. So let me share with you how I would create a performance-based program. And let's spend 5-10 minutes talking about that, because I think that will put all of this conversation, take it from theory to practice, if you will. The first thing that I want to talk about before I get into the mechanics is the other bad thing about the American culture or business industry culture, not just in America, but all over the world, was the only people who seemed to get bonuses in the world of bonus were general managers and sales managers. Somehow, nobody else made bonuses. Front office managers didn't make bonus, executive housekeepers didn't make bonus. Nobody else seemed to make bonus, leave alone line employees never made bonus. They may have got a Christmas $25 check for Christmas, but they never got bonuses. So I think that the first thought that we have to think about is, are we incentivizing select people? And is that discriminatory? Or are we incentivizing everybody? So how do you incentivize everybody? Well, one way to incentivize everybody is to make it more like a profit sharing program rather than I worked hard, so give me my bonus. And so if it's a profit sharing program, then I go back to my assumption, which is to say, how much money do we need to make at the top line? How much money do we need to get at the bottom line? So again, let me give you an example. So let's say my hotel, it's a Hampton Inn, whatever it is. Let's say it's targeted for $4 million business this year. So I'm going to break this down into 4 quarters, because no general manager can sort of in their mind keep track of 365 days. So I'm going to give them 3 months to worry about. And then I'm going to say month by month, I want you to give me $1 million in the first quarter. Well, to get to $1 million in the first quarter, I'm going to say you need to give me 300,000 in month 1 of the quarter, 350,000 in month 2 of the quarter, 350,000 in month 3 of the quarter. That adds up to $1 million. So if it's September and today is September 9th, and I'm supposed to do $350,000 by the end of the month, well, I should already by now be at the $110,000, $120,000 range, which means the first 9 days of my month, I'm on target to achieve my goal, or I'm behind target to achieve my goal. So if I create these numbers from a quarter to a month, and I have the data available to look at, then my management and my staff can see it and can say they're behind or they're on track. Same way, which is a little more complex, but now you need an accounting system that can track your expenses and say, yes, you're on track with your top line, with your $120,000, but you're not on track with your expenses. Your expenses are over or under. So again, whether it's my housekeeper or whether it's my front office manager or somebody else, they have to manage the labor cost, they have to manage the supply cost, and they have to be able to see those numbers. So my qualifiers for this incentive, which I want to make this a team incentive for everybody who works for my hotel, so that I can become the employer of choice of my hotel. I'm saying your goal is to make $1 million. You have to have a net operating income of 40%. I'm using numbers so that you can all stay on track with me. Don't take my numbers as the gospel. That means if you did your $1 million in the first quarter and you got your 40% NOI, that means there's $400,000 worth of money needed to be able to pay for everything below the EBITDA line, which is the interest, the taxes, the depreciation, the principal payments, etc., etc. So let's say my team is excellent, even in COVID, or COVID just plummeted my sales. If COVID plummeted my sales, then we haven't met the qualifiers. We don't make money, and the team understands because we haven't met the qualifiers. But let's say we met the qualifiers. I know some hotels in COVID that have exceeded the qualifiers. So now let's say this hotel made $450,000 net operating income. That's 50,000 incremental gain over what was anticipated, budgeted, or needed. And let's say my company, to be the employer of choice, says, I will take 20% of all incremental gains and share it with my staff. 20% of all incremental gains, I'm going to share it with my staff. Right there, think about the incentive. Now the question is 20% of 50,000 is 10,000. Now the question is, what do I do with this 10,000? Okay. I have to have a transparent system. I can't leave it to my discretion to say who gets what. So the system has to be black and white. Employees must know it, management must know it. So I'm going to say 50% of the pool that is made in this quarter goes to the management. And 50% of the pool goes to the staff. Stop and think about that. I told you that most people who make bonuses are GMs and sales managers. Now I'm saying the entire management team. Oh, and then I'm saying the entire staff. How foreign is that? How progressive is that? So now stay with me. I believe incentives should be, this performance-based incentive plan should be team-based. Team-based, but individually earned. So even though the hotel made $10,000 in the pool to give away, one or more of the employees may not qualify because they did not achieve their individual goals, their individual key performance indicators. So let's take the general manager. I'm going to say, with this $5,000 that I have available for the management pool, I'm going to give half of that to the GM, because we believe our leader is so critical to the profitability of the hotel that they get 50% of the management pool. Whether you want to make it 30% or 90%, that's your personality and your culture, and you can decide that. Just, I'm using numbers so I can do the math and communicate the math with you. So it's 50%. So 50% of $5,000 is $2,500 is what this GM is going to make in that quarter. So month one, month two, month three, they're saying, am I going to make my 2,500? Am I going to make my 2,500? Am I going to make my 2,500? Because the focus has to be on achieving the key goals. However, I'm going to put some disqualifiers. Now I'm going to say, okay, you made the bonus, the profitability, but guess what? We measure our associate satisfaction. We do an associate engagement survey every quarter, and you need to have a 90% score or higher. If you don't have 90% score, you disqualify or you lose X percent of your $2,500. Which means, hey, general manager, you have to focus on engaging your employees. I can do the exact same thing for another disqualifier that I'm calling guest satisfaction index. That could be your Medallia scores, that could be your TripAdvisor ranking, could be both, whatever you want to put in there, and saying it is critical to us that our guests are happy staying with us. So you have to maintain a certain score to be able to qualify for that $2,500 you made, or it will be reduced by a certain amount. So that's just the general manager. Now we'll bring the sales manager in. And maybe we say to the sales manager, you get 30% of the 5,000. But your disqualifiers are, we expect you to give us $150,000 or $350,000 of actual business that you signed and contracted for as part of the $1 million that we got in this quarter. That $1 million, 300 and some thousand dollars, had to be stuff that you had to show was your production. Now they are earning their keep, but they are participating with the general manager and everybody else as a team to make the hotel profitable, because most sales managers typically don't feel like team members of the hotel. They just say, give me my bonus because I achieved my sales, but the hotel is not being profitable. So the owner is saying, well, how can I give bonuses out when I'm not making money? Let's look at the front office manager. If the GM makes 50%, sales manager makes 30%, let's say the FOM and the executive housekeeper both make 10% each. How many front office managers make a quarterly bonus? How many executive housekeepers make a quarterly bonus this month? Why are you worried about your inspection scores, your QA scores, your medallia scores? Why are you worried about those when these people are not incentivized for them? Now you can put disqualifiers for your front office manager by saying, if the associates that work for you rate you above 90% in the associate engagement survey, then you earned your incentive. And or the medallia scores, you got the guest service scores to where they want to, you earned your. So the management pool, with 50% for the GM, 30% for sales, 10% for FOM, 10% for executive housekeeper, is only one sample. Let's move this down, drill this down to the hourly employees. Let's assume in this quarter, just so I can do my math, we had 5,000 hours clocked in by all our employees. 5,000 hours clocked in by all our employees. We've got $10,000 in the pool. Of that $10,000, $5,000 is for staff. So we take 5,000 hours, $5,000, 1 hour is equal to $1. And if this employee worked 200 hours in the quarter, this employee is potentially earned $200. And you can put whatever disqualifier you want. Something as simple as, if you get 0 write-ups in the quarter, i.e. you weren't tardy, i.e. you didn't come out of uniform, or you didn't get written up for something else, you made your $200. Now tell me, how many employees do you know, line employees, that make $200 a quarter as an incentive plan? So I very crudely have presented to you a performance-based incentive plan that is team-based but individually earned, and makes the whole hotel aspire to be profit-oriented as a team, satisfy the customers as a team, and makes the management satisfy or engage the associates as a team. I don't know how much of that Steve registered, because that was probably the fastest I ever described.
No, I think you hit a lot of that. I love the fact that you say it's team-based but individually earned, because that really resonates with a lot of people. And I think it's really great how you talk about not just the management, but the frontline employees, because those are the ones who are dealing with the guests, and you want them to be incentivized to give that great service that all hotels are trying to achieve. So I love that. Now, and before we open up to questions, I just want to make sure on the criteria, you talked about net operating income, the EBITDA. You also talked about the guest service index. Are there any other criteria that you should use for performance-based incentive programs?
Well, I mean, I guess my disclaimer is every company has a different philosophy. So the philosophy of the company has to be translated into the incentive plan, right? So I just use the three very standard legs of the stool. One is the associates, one is the guest satisfaction, and the third one is profitability. But I know companies, I have had clients of mine who had very complex incentive plans and measured a lot of stuff. That's fine. I understand why. But what I want you to remember is if we make it too complex, then the employees can't see what they need to do to fix it. The simpler we make this, the easier it is. So imagine the Lakers game yesterday or day before. Imagine how many three-pointers did LeBron James throw and how many did he get? But guess what? The announcer, the boards are all showing his score as he's playing. So if he's having a bad day, he knows he's having a bad day, as does the whole world. So keeping that individual score and tracking that score, if you can keep it simple, then I can see it.
That's great. I love that. And I'm sure you were happy for your Lakers the other day.
It's still a long ways to go.
Yes, there it is. It's early, but well, we'll go ahead and start opening it up for questions. If anyone has, we have received some, but if you have additional questions, please type them into the questions section, and Tarun will be more than happy to answer them. The first one that came through, Tarun, is there a percentage you should base your incentives off of?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but let me maybe try and break it down. So no two hotels need the same amount of money at the bottom below the EBITDA line or below the net operating income line. What do I mean? I said $1 million and 40%. And that may seem high to some, that may seem low to some. 40% may seem high, 40% may seem low. For a brand new construction hotel, premium branded hotel, 40% will be on the higher side. For an older hotel that was financed many years ago, 55% may be on the low side. So the critical thing is whether it's 40%, 50%, or 20%, that amount of money that you bring flow down to the bottom has to, one, pay for any income tax, two, pay for your principal and interest payments so that there's cash that can make the mortgage payment, and three, if you expect a return on your investment or your investors expect a return on the investment, you need to be able to make enough before you can start sharing it with the staff. So hypothetically, if that amounted to, let's say I needed $350,000 to meet these obligations in a quarter. I already set it at $400,000, so I've already put myself a $50,000 buffer. So now everything over 50,000 is sort of the icing on the cake. So if I can share that with my staff, how beautiful is that? So I guess full circle around, you have to do your own financial plan to see how much money you need in the quarter to meet your obligations and pay the return on investment that you need to pay your people.
Makes perfect sense. This question, Tarun, it kind of goes to what you said earlier, how it's team-based but individually earned. What do you do if an employee doesn't agree with the percentage or your assessment from what they have done for that time frame?
So I don't think an employee has a right to question the structure of the plan.
Okay.
That's the terms of employment of the company. That's the company's plan. Take it or leave it, right? But I think the question wasn't really structure-based. I think the question may have been in the assessment piece. So the assessment piece is if the front office manager says, why are you not giving me all my 10%? 10% of $5,000 is $500. Why are you not giving me all $500? Now that disqualification piece has to be transparent and in theory has to be legally correct because it could be used as a discrimination argument against you. So if I said to this person, if you scored 91 or higher on the associate satisfaction survey, you get 100% of your incentive. But if you score 85 to 90, you lose 10%. If you score 80 to 85, you lose 50%. And if you lose below 80%, you get zero. If that's the black and white criteria, then this individual can't come to me and say, why did you know, when I got my Christmas bonus and it was a good bonus, I gave my boss a hug. When it was less than I expected, I'm saying to myself, oh, why? So if the criteria are transparent and the calculation is transparent and I can show it to you, then I have rarely seen this become negative.
Excellent. This one, Tarun, they want to know, it says, should the performance-based incentive be yearly, quarterly, or monthly?
I personally like quarterly because I think, by the way, before I even answer that, I think what's critical to understand is you have your peaks and valleys in your business cycle. So winter may be a peak, winter may be a valley, summer may be a peak, summer may be a valley. So you have to be able to be careful in determining what those top line numbers are that you're setting and what those bottom line numbers are that you're setting. So if you were a two-season hotel, in other words, if you were like some of the Florida hotels that maybe primarily are doing majority of the business in the second 6 months, so maybe between October and March, and in the summertime maybe doing very badly. You could do it annually. The problem with annually is it doesn't have the same reminder incentive effect. The shorter the period, the more incentive impact there is. So quarterly is easy. So let's hypothetically say you were Florida hotels. You could, in theory, say Q1, which is January through end of March, is a peak season for you. So in Q1, I expect you to do $1.5 million in business. Q2, which is slightly slower season, I expect you to do $1 million in business. Q3, which is a terrible season, I expect you to do $750,000 in business, and Q4, which is a good season. So you have to balance your numbers, top line numbers, based on the seasonality of your business. You may not balance you for the bottom line, you may just set a flat 40%.
Makes sense. Thank you. Tarun, I'm going to ask this question, and you may not be able to answer it, and you may have to have them reach out to you directly. But I do want to go ahead and ask this, if you don't mind. It says, this was great. Can Tarun send us incentive plan examples? We are recreating incentive plans to help incentivize management and frontline workers, and I'm curious to see what examples are out there.
I'll be happy if the person can contact me. I'll be happy to give them a shell that has all of these explanations in writing. But I will tell you, every one of my clients over the last 20, 30 years have all somehow managed to customize that incentive plan to either certain criteria important to them or certain philosophy important to the company. So you would have to do some adjustment, but contact me, folks, and I'll be happy to either answer questions or send you something.
And Tarun's email and phone number is here, and he, like he said, he's very willing to help you, and we'll get that over to you as quickly as possible. Tarun, those are all the questions that we have received. So I want to personally thank you again for this 3-part series. I loved how you started it and how you finished it. You brought it all together. And I think the members really get a lot out of what you have provided to them. And I personally look forward to another webcast series with you, and look forward to working with you again. So want to personally thank you and Kapoor Hospitality for providing another successful and informative webinar. We also want to thank everyone who joined us today. Feel free to check out our AHOA Web COVID-19 resource page on the ahoa.com for future webinars, and also for past webinars we have done. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we hope to see you all join us for future webinars and AHOA events. Thank you again, Tarun.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.